They know they cannot defeat Russia. They've gone into this with the goal of getting a war getting the U.S. to attack Russia. Okay, that's their goal. Okay, so is that the goal of the Germans and the French, the people, Bulgaria?
Can this war actually dissolve the European Union? Is it such a threat for the EU?
Well, it's a threat to NATO. And this is why. This is why I would say, whatever, however it looks like they're pushing Zelensky to the side, if Russia wins this conflict in NATO, end up in control of the Donbass and now the Kherson is up Crimea, and if they end up forcing NATO forever any idea of membership in NATO and to adopt a neutral stance, that's going to be the end of NATO. And you see right now that countries in NATO, the leader of Orban in Hungary gave a very nice thing yesterday saying, look, NATO is supposed to be a defensive alliance, not supposed to be an alliance to protect other people.
Yes.
Yeah. So Italy and Germany, this has been a war against Europe. They destroyed a major critical public infrastructure, energy infrastructure, the Nord Stream. That was German. That helped Germany. So has become an adjunct of NATO, and NATO has demonstrated that it's an offensive force that's really controlled by the United States, and which would destroy the economies of Europe. So the European countries, the NATO countries, and the European countries are faced with the fact that if they continue along this road of being just a cat's paw of NATO and of the Americans, they're going to get more and more of these and wars around the world that they don't really want to be a part of. And so unless somehow the Russians are defeated dramatically, Russia is not going to sit back. It's not going to happen. Notion that we're safe because Russia wouldn't dare. Yes, they would dare. They have dared, and they will dare, and they would dare. So, and they keep telling you that. So, because a long war with Russia is going to be the end of NATO. So, it really NATO looks like it's doing well because look, we're joining NATO, but Germany and France are saying, what the hell are we doing? We don't want to go to war with Russia. And Europe. Well, how did we get into this? Why should we be in this? We don't want to go to war with Russia. The elements of Ukraine, the right wing dominant in Ukraine, want their goal is to get a war between Russia and NATO and the US. That's their goal. That's always been their goal. They know they cannot defeat Russia. They've gone into this with the goal of getting a war getting the U.S. to attack Russia. Okay, that's their goal. Okay, so is that the goal of the Germans and the French, the people, Bulgaria and Hungary?
I don't think so. No. Absolutely no. How do you think? How stable is the position of Putin inside Russia? We saw this Prigozhin case with his Wagner group. What was all of that? It was just a scenario, or it was some kind of a real threat?
Well, it wasn't much of a real threat. It went away very quickly. Although I don't have any idea. I really am very confused about what it was and what Prigozhin is.
Everybody's.
I just don't understand it completely, and I can't claim to. But clearly, Prigozhin has some kind of loyalty and hold among the Wagner Group, and among at least a quarter of the 25% of the soldiers in the Wagner Group, and he's got been a stronghold there. And the Wagner Group performed very well, so everybody in Russia was very supportive and admiring of the Wagner Group. But this little stunt that he pulled, which was so bizarre, and again, one of these things that couldn't have succeeded unless he had some kind of widespread support among the Russian military, the Russian political class, the Russian popular, he didn't. So Putin emerged immediately better and stronger. He demonstrated he put this down within 24 hours without any serious fighting, within 48 hours, let's say. And he went from 70% approval to 90% approval.
Yeah.
So for the time being, and this is one of these things the Americans thought, oh, we're going to put such, and there's all kind of, Putin is a madman, and a lot of people in Russia know it, and there's going to be, if we put enough economic pressure on him and military pressure on him, and blow some things up with wonder weapons, then everybody, all these Russian people who hate Putin are going to come and throw him out. I mean, this is nonsense. As everybody said, every American foreign policy expert, from George Kennan to William Bloom, who's now the head of the CIA and was the Russian ambassador to Russia, and Matlock, who was the ambassador to Russia, Kissinger, every one of them have said, Ukraine is an absolute red line for Russia. Absolute red line. They will fight over this. It's crazy to be doing this, to think that you can go into get Ukraine into NATO, to make Ukraine into a cat's paw of there. But they all did it, and that's not so. Putin's, and they all said, I don't know which one it was. Any president of Russia would have to react to this. Mahatma Gandhi was the president of Russia. He'd have to react to NATO coming into Ukraine, because the Russians cannot. They couldn't do it. The Americans couldn't stand some missiles in Cuba. They couldn't stand Mexico becoming a part of the Warsaw Pact. It's just crazy. So this is not, Putin is and the crazy thing is, I think you probably understand, your audience understand this better than Americans. The people who are going to come in to replace Putin are probably going to be more hawkish than Putin. Putin spent 9 years trying to avoid this. He was criticized in Russia for 9 years for not in 2014 recognizing the Donbass, which voted 90%. And he told them, no, you got to stay in Ukraine. And he tried for 9 years with his quote-unquote partners in the West to make this work and keep Ukraine a unitary state. And when he finally gave up on it.
Sorry to interrupt you, but some Bulgarian analysts says that Putin is like a white rabbit to that what might come next.
Absolutely. And the Americans don't understand this at all. They've got this whole madman theory. Oh, he's a madman. Putin's a crazy guy who just wants to take over Ukraine for the sake of, because he wants to start taking over the rest of Europe and reorganize the Soviet Union in some kind of way, as from what kind of way. So this is all nonsense, but this is very dominant in American media and American thinking.
It's all the same, the big bad Russian bear and poor Ukrainians, and that's all.
It's cartoon. It's a cartoon.
Yeah, absolutely.
A Marvel, universe cartoon.
It was the same with Napoleon back then. Just the British was doing it to Napoleon.
Mm-hmm. You create, you create him as a villain and as a dictator or as some kind of evil character who wants to take over the world because he's a madman, and that's what you do. That's not politics. That's cartoons.
Absolutely. Okay, thank you, Mr. Kavana. It was a pleasure for me.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. I would be very happy if you accept again in the near future another interview.
Let me just ask, remind people they can follow me at Substack, at Jim Kavana's Substack, and that I publish also on Counterpunch and other places on the net, and you can follow me on Twitter at @thepolemicist_.
I will add the links to the comments. Thank you once more and have a good night.
Thank you much.
Благодарим ви, че изгледахте това видео. Ако желаете канала да продължи да се развива, да продължи да съществува, може да ни подкрепите, като си закупите чаша свобода. Повече информация за нея ще остане в описанието и коментарите под това видео. Също така можете да ни подкрепите и в Patreon, където ще имате достъп до ексклузивно видеосъдържание, част от което ще видите в момента на екрана. Също така ще получите и отстъпка за всички наши сегашни и бъдещи артикули, които са и които ще бъдат пуснати в продажба Благодарим на всички наши абонати в Patreon и разбира се на тези, които изгледаха това видео. Благодарим ви и до следващия път.